Welcome back to Proverbs 31 Life. Today we are looking at the cost of disobeying the Lord. What will it cost you? Our example for this is going to be Jonah. So we are going to start in Jonah chapter 1, verses 1 and 2. God calls Jonah to go to Nineveh with a very specific request. Give them the gospel. God knew the people's hearts were wicked, but he also knew that at that time they were receptive. They would have repented. They were receptive to the gospel. He wanted Jonah to go now to the people. God was ready and willing to forgive and save the people. They just needed to hear it. But verse 3 shows us that Jonah disobeyed. He went the other way and paid the fare for a ticket to somewhere he was not supposed to go. So he had the cost of the ticket to leave God's will. We don't know how much it is, but there was a cost. Verse 5 tells us the men on the ship threw their goods overboard to attempt to lighten the ship. This cost them. They lost their goods. The King James uses the word wares. This is just their cargo. It could have been their needed supplies, items that they were selling, maybe something they had bought that they were taking, somewhere else. They were transporting it. But either way, they had paid for what was on that ship. And now it was in the sea. These men were not the ones disobeying the Lord, but it was costing them. Our sin affects others. Chapter 1, verse 17 tells us that Jonah was in the belly of a great fish for 3 days and 3 nights. Chapter 2, verse 3 says Jonah had a 3-day journey from where he was to get to Nineveh. This is at least a 6-day delay from when the Lord had sent him originally. It cost a lot of time. It wasn't costing Jonah time. I mean, it did, because he had to take a 3-day trip to get to where he was supposed to be anyway. But think of the 6 days that passed in Nineveh. What happens to your life in 6 days? These people were going to work. What if someone died in that 6 days? Surely at least one person died, right? Did that person spend eternity in hell because they hadn't heard the gospel yet, because Jonah wouldn't go? I don't know. It might have cost someone their eternity. It's hard for us to grasp this because we typically want to believe that not hearing the gospel is a pass on hell, but it's not. We know that even creation declares the glory of God. And Titus tells us, I believe it's Titus, tells us that the salvation hath appeared to all men. Doesn't mean they grasp all of it or understand it, but God has given an option, a way for everyone to know who he is. But this is why we must share the gospel. We must support mission work for this. I'm not going to get real far into this right now, and if you disagree, then that's fine. I'm not going to, argue this out in the comments or anything, but if someone died waiting on Jonah to get there, they are probably in hell because they did not hear the gospel. Saying no to God is expensive, even if we don't immediately pay that price, and if we don't pay the full price. Like we see here with Jonah, he paid for a ticket that he did not need. The men on the ship lost their goods, and it's possible that souls were lost. Jonah didn't pay the whole price. He had a 6-day journey. That's nothing compared to eternity in hell. Saying no is expensive. But it would be a lie if I said that saying yes was not also expensive. Saying yes may mean giving up hobbies, interests, moving, or maybe just simply leaving your comfort zone. Saying yes to God brings growth. It brings peace. It increases our faith. It allows God to work in our life. It allows us to be used in the lives of others. But it's probably going to cost you your time, your energy, some resources. It means being selfless instead of selfish. But when you are in the will of God, there's peace, protection, and joy that you're not going to find anywhere else. Whatever saying yes to God may cost you, be sure that God knows and sees it, and he will repay. Maybe not in the same way. I'm not saying if you give someone $10 because they needed that, you're immediately going to get that $10 back. Some of our things aren't going to be repaid till we get to heaven, and that's going to be all the payment we could ever ask for. But I just want to encourage you that sin is expensive. There is a cost. It's not worth it. Say yes to God. Live by faith and obedience with whatever it is that he calls you to do. Don't be like Jonah. Don't cost someone else on account of your sin. Don't delay in giving the gospel message and witnessing or encouraging someone that God has laid on your heart. Trust him. Stay in the word. Stay close to the shepherd and let him lead you in paths of righteousness.